Okay, gotta admit, sometimes I just get in the mood for like a good, solid spaceship movie, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But this deep dive, this one's a little different.
Little bit different, yeah.
We're strapping in for Aniara.
Okay.
It's a Swedish film from a few years back, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes that whole spaceship thing, that metaphor we love,
Yeah.
and it kind of steers it right into a cosmic existential crisis.
It really does. Like, it leans into that feeling of being adrift, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
You're right. It's not about, like, you know, the laser battles and the first contact and all that.
Right.
Aniara, it's digging into what happens when that future we imagine.
Yeah.
When it goes, you know, really wrong.
It goes bad. There's no quick fix.
Yeah, there's no easy way out.
And to help us navigate this one, we're going deep on a review by Winston Dixon.
Okay.
He gets into not just the plot, but like why this film hits differently, I think.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, picture this. It's like way out there, year 3000 something,
Right.
Earth, pretty much cooked.
Toast.
Mars is looking more like Plan B, last resort kind of deal.
Yeah.
Not exactly paradise.
Yeah.
And that's where the Aniara comes in. It's this spaceship, but imagine like a super sleek luxury cruise liner.
Okay. Absolutely.
Packed with people who are desperate for a fresh start, right?
Makes sense.
Dixon even points out just the whole idea of escaping to Mars in this film. It's not exactly a hopeful one, is it?
Exactly. It really speaks to this, I don't know, underlying dread. Even the solution feels kind of temporary, you know?
Like delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, like kicking the can down the road.
Right.
Until the can, of course, explodes.
Spectacularly.
Yes.
Because you know it's coming.
Yeah.
3 weeks into this like relaxing cruise, space debris.
Whoops.
No power, no steering. They're just floating.
Oh, that's not good.
So the captain, this guy, Chiffon, he tries to keep everyone from panicking by telling this huge lie.
What's the lie?
Oh, he says they'll swing back around, no big deal.
Oh, no.
But the ship's astronomer, he knows the truth.
Uh-oh.
They're on a one-way trip to nowhere.
Yikes.
And Dixon sets up this clash between, like, hope and that cold, hard reality so well.
Yeah, and that's a classic storytelling device when you think about it, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
But what's so fascinating here, at least to me, is how it plays out against this backdrop, right? This immense, unforgiving universe.
Yeah.
Dixon actually compares it to Lord of the Flies, but set in space.
Okay, hold on. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Here.
Because on the surface, you've got kids stranded on an island, right?
Right.
Versus, like, futuristic space travelers.
Right.
What's the connection Dixon's drawing there? It's that whole thing of, like, things falling apart, right?
Yeah.
You take away the rules, the structure, the things we rely on, and suddenly, boom, it's like human nature is just laid bare.
Totally. It's like all bets are off.
And on the Aniara, it sounds like that plays out in some, well, pretty intense ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Dixon really gets into how, like, the passengers on the ship, they almost become these, like, microcosms of a whole society breaking down.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so, like, different factions, different reactions, the whole shebang.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you've got the Captain Chiffon, right?
Yeah.
Initially, he's this, like, figure of authority. He's trying to hold it together.
Makes sense.
But as things get worse, as that situation on the ship deteriorates, his lies, they become more and more desperate.
Oh, man. So it's like he's trying to maintain control, but it's actually what's destroying him.
It's this weird paradox, right? Like, his attempt to preserve hope is what ultimately undermines everything.
Wow. And then on the other side of that, you've got the astronomer. He's like the voice of reason in all this chaos, and he gets shut down pretty quickly.
It's like, even in a crisis, sometimes people would rather cling to those comforting lies you were talking about than face the truth, you know?
Oof. Yeah. It's easier to swallow, even if it's a bitter pill to swallow.
Exactly. And Dixon really highlights that whole tension, that push and pull between truth and denial all through the review. But then he brings in this other character, the Mimorobin.
Okay. Yeah.
And she adds a whole other dimension to how people cope.
Right. She's the one who runs that virtual reality system, right? The Mima.
Yeah, the Mima.
Yeah.
Dixon describes it as this incredibly immersive, like, totally sensory experience.
Yeah, he makes it sound amazing and terrifying at the same time.
Oh, totally.
Like, imagine being plugged into that thing while everything around you is literally falling apart.
And from what Dixon writes, it seems like everyone on the Aniara, they're hooked on it.
Can you blame them?
Not really. And that's where Aniara gets really interesting, I think. Because Mima, that virtual world, it becomes symbolic. You know, it represents that very human need to escape, to find connection, especially when you're facing this, like, overwhelming despair.
Totally. So it's like their escape hatch from the reality of being stuck on this, dying ship.
Exactly. It's their way to tune out the terror, at least for a little while, but then, well, even that escape hatch, it's slammed shut.
Because the system crashes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Dixon describes how Mima, it just overloads. It collapses under all that collective fear and despair.
Oh, wow. So even the virtual world can't handle the weight of reality.
It's this powerful metaphor for the limits of technology, I think. And maybe even like the limits of our own ability to cope when we're faced with the unimaginable.
So what happens then, when their escape is gone?
Well, the Mimorobin, she sees it coming. She tries to warn people, but they don't want to listen. So she takes matters into her own hands, creates a new illusion.
What do you mean?
This massive simulated view screen. It wraps around the whole ship, projecting images of nature, of a world outside their metal prison, desperately trying to offer some kind of hope.
Even if it's built on a lie.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, is that act ultimately kind or cruel?
Right. Is it better to face the brutal truth or find comfort in an illusion, even if you know it's temporary? Man, heavy stuff.
And it's a question Aniara doesn't shy away from, But Dixon argues that it's exactly those tough questions that make it so compelling. And speaking of compelling, he also talks about this subplot with a passenger named Ezekiel. And without giving too much away, her story really touches on the resilience of people, that human spirit, that drive to create life, even when all hope seems lost.
It's interesting how even in this, totally confined, sterile environment of a spaceship, those primal human instincts, they don't just disappear, do they? If anything, they find new ways to come out, even if it's messy, even if it's tragic.
It's like we're wired for it, right? That need for connection, for hope, for creation. And that's actually reflected in the film's visuals, too, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dixon talks about the cinematography, and he uses words like sleek and sterile, which I think really captures it.
Yeah, and he points out how even as the ship itself starts to decay, the camera work is very deliberate, almost slow motion in places.
It adds to that feeling of being trapped, of time just slipping away. Ugh, it's giving me anxiety just thinking about it.
And that constant artificial light, Dixon argues that it's like this constant reminder that they're completely cut off from nature, from something real, something bigger than themselves.
Which, kind of makes you think about our world now.
Uh-oh. You're going there.
Well, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we're spending more and more time in our own artificially lit, digitally driven bubbles, aren't we? Are we losing touch with something essential?
Okay. Yeah, that's a chilling thought.
Right. And it's something Aniara forces us to confront.
Head on. No escape.
Exactly. But the real gut punch, at least from how Dixon describes it, comes at the very end.
Yeah.
So about that ending.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Dixon's description, I don't know, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Buckle up, listeners, kind of a thing.
Big time.
Because Aniara jumps way, way ahead. Thousands of years, maybe even millions later.
Yeah.
And that ship, that hunk of metal, still carrying all those ghosts from the past.
Right.
It finally reaches a habitable planet.
It does. Wow.
It does. But.
Always a but.
Right. There's a catch.
Okay, I figured. What is it?
Everyone on board. Long gone.
Oh, wow.
Dixon doesn't spell it out, but you're left with this chilling feeling. What was the point of it all?
Yeah, that's bleak. But is it nihilistic? Is there no hope at all?
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Dixon mentions how Aniara was actually a huge success in Sweden.
Really?
Yeah, and apparently a lot of that has to do with the fact that audiences there, they have this connection to the poem it's based on.
Oh, interesting. So they're coming in with a whole other layer of context.
Yeah, exactly. But elsewhere, it didn't really land the same way. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. Maybe it's just, too real,
Too close to home?
Yeah, something like that. We're living in a time where there's so much anxiety about the future, climate change, social unrest, the whole deal. Maybe a part of us would rather not confront those fears head on.
Even in a movie, you mean?
Especially in a movie. It's we want that escape, right? Not a reminder of how messed up things could get.
Right. Ignorance is bliss, as they say.
Exactly. But is it really bliss? I mean, in this case, at least. Because Dixon seems to be saying that Aniara, even with how bleak it is, it might be the kind of wake-up call we need.
To shake us out of our complacency.
Yeah, maybe. To make us actually confront these big, scary questions instead of just, scrolling past them on our phones.
He did quote some critics, actually, who described it as eerily mesmerizing, artistically admirable.
Right, so it's not like it's a bad film.
No, not at all. If anything, it might be too good,
Too real.
Exactly.
And sometimes that's harder to handle than just, spaceships and lasers and all that.
So, if we can bring this back to Earth for a second.
Back to reality.
What's the takeaway for our listeners? What do you think a film like Aniara ultimately wants us to think about?
I think it's about asking those tough questions about how we're living, what we're prioritizing, what kind of future we're creating or not creating. And maybe, just maybe, it'll light a fire under us to actually do something about it.
Not just be passengers on a ship drifting through space.
Exactly.
Well, folks, there you have it. Aniara. Not your typical feel-good space adventure, but a film that definitely stays with you.
For sure.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most important journeys, the ones that really make us think, well, they're not always the easiest, but they're the ones worth taking. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the vastness of space and maybe, just maybe, the even vaster potential of our own choices here on Earth.